It's interesting that you have now knowledge about these attacks, and you should start really. You should start to really ask to tell people about it. Okay, so no worries. I will accept one day, guys. Inshallah, we will have a day like it's gonna be a fun day that we will look at the stories that happen in cybersecurity, and we will take our time to understand what happened, who was the perpetrator behind these attacks, okay, who was impacted by these attacks. You know, we used to do this in my previous, I used to teach a course alone here, which is called SCADA security. It's all about SCADA. So every day we will have a very nice story about SCADA. Someone hacked the SCADA system, and then we start to look at who did this, why he did this, what is his motivation, okay, what is the impact of these attacks, and then we start to discuss with the students what is the best way, defensive way or strategy to stop this kind of attacks. Yeah, exactly. I agree. So Asile was telling me this was a very long story. I agree. It is a long story, and it lasted maybe months until they find out who was behind this attack. Okay, so inshallah, we'll take one time to look at one of these stories and discuss it, inshallah, in very deep details. Okay, meanwhile, guys, can you raise your hands now so we can take the attendance, and then I will go ahead and start the lecture for the day. Okay. Everyone raise your hands up in the air. Okay, no, it's still early to raise your hands up in the air. Okay, I can see Nasiba. Can you raise your hand, Nasiba? Also Sheikha, can you raise your hand? Tahani, can you raise your hand so we can go ahead and do the...
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, no worries. Just raise your hand, Sheikha and Tahani. Can you guys raise your hands? Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the lecture for today. So again, the way that I like to remind you what we have been doing this week and maybe a bit of last week as well, is we are really focusing right now in detections. Okay, so we wanted to detect anything anomaly happening on our network, or maybe something abnormal that takes place, whether this thing is taking place in the network level or in the operating system level, or even in the application level, or the behavior level, which is a user behavior level. Okay, so we wanted to detect any anomaly. And again, guys, the way I like to talk about this is, if I have a house and I wanted really to detect if someone is really approaching my house or intruding my house, I will start with implementing prevention controls, which is basically, this is the protection area that we talked about it long time ago. So I will make sure that to prevent any intruders, okay, and I will implement layer of security. So this is what we talked about it before, and we mentioned that in order to implement prevention techniques, we need to implement something called defense in depth, and defense in depth is basically building layers after layers of security. So if they are overlapping and there is one of these layers falling from protecting you, then you will have another layer to compensate. So that's why we learned in the protection that we need to implement firewalls, network firewalls, and we need to implement proxy gateways. We need to implement even IDS and IBS to monitor the traffic coming. We need to implement an application firewall. We need also to implement personal firewall and host detections firewall. So this is all, guys, is building layer after layer. It's the same exact thing. It's really reflecting on reality. In order to stop someone to get to your house, you build a fence around your house. You add locks to your doors. If you have a door here, you add a lock so no one can get into the house. Okay, maybe if you have like some really important asset within, maybe you can hire a guard over here, and this guard will stop someone to get in. Okay, but this is all in order to build prevention controls. But again, we mentioned that if we have really professional thief or someone who is really doing this for his like life. Okay, guys, please, oh, everyone raise his hand. So Sheikha and Tahani, okay, I can see everyone raised his hand already, except for Sheikha. Abir, can you just send them a message? If they are not responding, then take them off, take them absent. Okay, so if I have a professional thief here, guys, someone who's really into stealing your house, and he is motivated and he has the capability, your prevention controls is not going to stop this, guys, because he will manage to deceive the guard, he will manage to jump the fence, he will manage to break into your lock here or to break the lock to get inside the house. So with very advanced thief or with really a capable thief, he can really make sure, waiting for these guys to go to the bathroom, maybe waiting for these guys to maybe go for changing his shift, okay? And then he will manage to have a ladder or something to jump, and he managed to have a tools to open the doors. And even if your money here is in a safe, he will know how to really open this safe, okay? So with really advanced thieves, we really need to have another layer of detections. And the layer of detections means that if we have an attacker who managed to bypass or evade or to jump over all our prevention controls, we at least can detect him, okay, before he can really cause a lot of damage. So that's why in our normal system we will have camera system here, and this camera system is monitoring the surrounding area around your house or your home all the time, or maybe 24/7. So you will have this camera, and important also to have someone who's watching over this camera. So if he noticed something suspicious, we at least can detect this suspicious activity. And this is, you can see, guys, if you have a very important museum, okay, or very important, if you guys remember, this is I know that's Abu Dhabi, they have this Louvre museum. I know that Saudi Arabia also, you guys have some museums, but the museums, I think that I went to one museum in Medina. It's called the Quran Museum. It's very close to the masjid. So you guys have museums. So the museum, they will have guards, they will have doors, and this door is like electronic doors and everything, but you still have cameras everywhere. Why? Because you wanted really to detect any suspicious activity. And the most important thing is you have someone is watching over this suspicious activity all the time. And once this guy found any anomalies, anything suspicious, okay, he can really respond by calling the police or by calling the authority, or even by calling the guard over here to respond quickly before the attacker can achieve his objective and steal your money or steal your resources, okay? With the same exact example in your mind, guys, we implement our detection technique in networks. So we said that we 100% sure that our protection techniques, even if they are so good, okay, there is also a chance, there is a possibility, okay, for someone to break into your network. So we really needed detection techniques to complete the picture of security here. So how to do this, guys, in networks? We said, okay, we need first of all to have a centralized location. So my engineer will be able to see everything that's happened in our network. And we need to train this engineer to be able to detect if there is an event is happening, okay? Because, if you are in a museum, you have people going back and forth every day, in and out, in and out. That's okay, okay? So this is a normal event, okay? And we need to really train them to find if there is something suspicious, they can start to investigate this suspicious. So in the same mentality, we need to have our SOC tier. We call this SOC engineer. We talked about different SOC tiers. We took that the SOC team is going to be there looking at event all the time. We have someone is working 24/7 because you never know when the attack will start to hit your organization. So you have a team of SOC engineers that you look over the logs, where the logs are coming from. We talked about this before, and we'll talk about it also another time today, but in a real-time example. So the logs are coming from different sources. Can someone tell me which different sources we can get the logs from?
Firewalls.
Okay, great. So we're getting logs from firewalls. That's nice. Okay, so firewalls.
Host detection, maybe. IDs and host IDs.
Okay, so what? I'm sorry, knife. Is it knife?
Oh, Faisal.
Faisal. Oh, sorry. Mesh consists of, first of all, network layer. So we get that from switches, routers, here network layer, also firewalls. We're getting some logs from all our network devices. Okay. Ustaz Asail now is saying, mashallah, that we need also to get logs from our IoT system. Yes, if we are in a factory and we have an IoT system or SCADA system, we need to get the logs from this as well, because this is also an end of day a computer that runs operating systems. So we really need to get also the IT logs from the IoT if we work in an environment. But again, guys, remember this: IT systems, okay, IT system consists of multiple layers. Okay, the first layer that we have is network. So this is the network layer. So I need to really understand what's happening in our network, and I will show you today how network is important to get to understand what's happening. So we get that data from network, as Abdulaziz said, switches, routers. Also, our system consists of hardware, which is servers, okay, and operating system running over this hardware. And this operating systems, we need to get the logs from it. So if we have Windows, Linux, Unix, OS X, so we really need to get the logs from here as well. Okay, we need above the operating system, we have an applications, and these application guys are very important, like something like mail server, web server, database servers. We need to get the logs from here as well. Okay, if we have data and this data is located in a maybe an encrypted format, or we need to understand who is accessing our database and data. So we need to get this logs as well. Okay, when you have users, they are part of the IT system, because the IT system is not going to work by itself. We have user who's accessing this operating system, who's accessing this application, who reaching these files and folders and data here. So I really need to understand his activity. Okay, so I wanted the logs from users, and I wanted also the logs from administrator, who is basically accessing the data and application as an admin. I wanted to see what these guys are up to. Exactly. So also logs from memory dump. Very good interaction from Naif. But he said also we need to get the memory dump, and I will explain why memory dump today is important, because there is some attacks, some techniques are really exploiting machine without leaving any files trace in the hard drive. We call them malware fileless. Means this malware is being run in the memory, doesn't have any file artifacts in your hard drive. So we really need to dump the memory. And that's why we talked about 2 days ago about something called order of volatility. The order of volatility means you really need to get your hands on which process is running right now, what kind of memory it's execute. Okay, so the process and memory is going hand in hand. So in order to understand what process, what memory are using, and what kind of connection this process are using is very important. So we really need to in order to see this kind of attacks, we really need to get also a memory dump from time to time on our servers. Okay, we mentioned that admin also we need to send the logs. Once we have all these logs, we can understand, the big picture, what's happening. And I just forget also what Faisal said. Faisal said that also in the operating system, we have our own endpoint protections, like a host firewall, like maybe antivirus here, or maybe HIDS, which is basically host intrusion detection system or prevention systems. I need to get these logs as well, because this is going to be giving me a full picture. And the logs from the operating system, especially the security logs, and especially for what kind of processes right now, what kind of service are new in the systems, I need also to get a logs of it. Once we have these logs, guys, this gentleman sitting here will be able to analyze these logs, and he can decide, or he can determine, if I'm looking at an event, which is normal log, or I'm looking at incidents according to the training that you have already given him. So event or incidents, this is his main job as a SOC tier 1. We talked also about once he found an evidence that there is something suspicious happened, he can give it a severity, which is basically a priority for this case, according to which asset is being compromised, or which asset he's saying that there is something suspicious about this asset. He can give it a severity. He open a ticket for this specific event, or this is a specific incident. He give it a severity and then turn it to the SOC tier 2, which is IR team. The IR team is basically is an incident response. We will look at the incident response again tomorrow, but in a very simple term, the incident response is the person who's going to come and try, if you have an incident taking place, to try to make sure to really find a remedies and fix the situation before the situation get really into your system and cause much more damage to your system. Imagine a firefighter. What is the main job of a firefighter? You bring someone to really, if you have a fire breaks somewhere, you get this firefighter as fast as you can to the incident place where this fire is started to really break in, and get him to really put the fire down as fast as he can. So you can see this, they have fast cars, they have all the equipment, they know what is kind of procedures. The main procedures is to really evacuate humans from the building, make sure that the fume is not gonna cause much damage, and then put down the fire. So they have a list of actions the firefighter will do in order to put the fire down. The incident response also will have a plan, will have certain procedures they will do in order really to find the remedies or to rectify the issue that is happening in our system. So these guys, you need to understand the operating system very well. You need to understand how to contain a virus break or malware break or any other incident, denial of service. Okay, so they need to know how to eradicate a malware, or how to get rid of a denial of service attacks. And then finally, they need to know how to recover system to the original normal state so the business can continue. Because you guys need to remember why the incident response are there, why we're trying to recover, because we wanted the business to really come back to operation. So this server, the web server that it was under attack, comes back to online and people can access it. So this is the main objective of incident response. And we mentioned this is all great when it comes to reactive response. And we mentioned what is we mean by reactive response, that you have an incident and you work accordingly. Okay, so what is missing here, guys? Okay, this is all reactive. What is missing to complete this picture? Okay, do you guys understand? Do you get guys what understand my question is?
No.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so I have said that we already done all this reactive. Reactive means that you are waiting for incidents to happen and then you react upon the incidents. Okay, so what is really missing? Okay, just let me go back to my analogy here. Okay, you have a house, okay, and you are monitoring everything with the camera systems, and you're waiting something suspicious to happen, okay, and to react, send a guard or whatever, right? Okay, but what if I want to be proactive? What I should do, okay, in this example of the house. So I have a fence here, I have the house, I have the door, okay, and have a camera here. I have this guys sitting watching everything around the camera, okay. Now I wanted really to be proactive. How can I be proactive in this example? Okay, Naif is saying to do a reconnaissance, okay. How we would do reconnaissance? Okay, Abdulaziz is saying threat hunting. Yes, hunting, exactly. So in this example, guys, I'm not gonna wait for the attacker to really get come close, or maybe the attacker managed to just, jump into the fences, and now he's in my area, but I cannot see it because of the camera is having a limited view for what is happening around my building. So I really need from time to time to send a patrol, like someone, a guard here, to go around my building and check himself. So if one of these cameras is not working, or maybe one of these camera cannot get like 180 degrees exactly, so that maybe an attacker is sitting there. Maybe he's going very, very slow and very advanced. So he managed to jump into the walls, and he's here, but you cannot see but with a camera. So from time to time, guys, we need to be proactive. We need to send the guard to go around this area, and that's what sometimes you see in the military bases. You find there is a patrol, you find a car that's going around looking if something suspicious. That doesn't mean they don't have a camera. They have a camera, but maybe the camera is being sometimes cannot see 100% at night, or maybe it cannot see 360 degrees, or maybe this camera takes some time to watch this area and then go all the way to watch the other area. So I need a patrol. And the patrol is, or a group of guards that they go around looking and hunting for a threat. And that's exactly what will complete the picture. Why we need these guys? Because again, we have very smart guys out there. We call them ABTs. We have already covered what is ABTs and nation states before. So this is part of what is ABT is all about. ABT is an advanced group. They are nation funded. They have their own tools. They are not easy to detect. Okay, within our evidence, so they know what kind of prevention techniques. So they know how to bypass these prevention techniques. It's not easy for us to detect them, even with the normal detection tools. Okay, so we really need to have someone out there hunting, looking for them, and he always have this mentality that I've been compromised. There is a hypothesis that I've been compromised. Let me look if I'm compromised or not. So I will go look for them in the wild, look for them for an indication that we have already been compromised. So this is what also bring us to threat hunting and threat intelligence. We have covered this point, 2 points before, and we said this both of them are a process that you follow until you really can prove that you've been already compromised or no. So this is started with hypothesis, collecting samples and data, and analyze this with the different methodologies. Like, for example, malware analysis. I will show you a little bit of malware analysis today. And then finally, I can reach to a conclusion saying, yes, this system is compromised, or this system is not compromised. If it's compromised, I will call again the incident response. If it's not compromised, I will keep hunting, looking for something. And that is what will complete, I would say, our nice diagram over here. So the nice diagram is saying detect, and the detection is really split it to 2 parts: reactive detections. So you're looking for an incident to happen, and then you ask the responding team, or proactive detections, which is basically the incident response. And once you find, sorry, not response, threat hunting. Once you find something really bad happening, you can always go back and get these guys. And the most important thing is the time between detection and responding should be very, rapid, very quick. So you will not be compromised, and the attacker will not achieve their objectives. So you detect them and then respond immediately for this kind of attacks. Okay, guys. So we already talked about this before. We talked about why we need detections, because we cannot have 100% protection techniques. So we need detections. We also there is technology changing a lot these days, especially for working from home and cloud. This has opened the door for more threats. And we have also these advanced threats that we really cannot really detect easily. So I need to have a full detection techniques, whether it's proactive or reactive. Okay, guys. Again, we talked also a couple of days ago about the SIM solution and what will allow someone to collect logs we need a solution that will be able to collect these logs, store it in one place, allow you to analyze it and correlate it, and then it will give you the option to open tickets and raise the concern with the incident response team. So what kind of solution we need is called SIM solution. So we will collect the logs, we will monitor the traffic, we will get this all to a centralized location, which is a SIM. Okay, and the SIMs, inshallah, you will guys have the opportunity maybe this weekend or maybe on Sunday to go online and check. We have like a small setup for a SIM online that you can go and see events in a real time. And these events you can start to investigate to really see if it's an event or basically an incident. And then you can write your own
Shadi,
report.
is
Yes.
Commanda an example for SIM?
You mean a SIM solution?
Yeah, is Commanda a SIM solution?
Yeah, you want the name of the solution or the vendor?
No, I have worked before on something called Commanda, and
Okay.
it's a track all the activity inside the system. And yeah, it showed me all the process, sometimes some of the logs, but I'm not really sure if this is really example of SIM.
Okay, so I will tell you. I'll give you an example for SIM. So the SIM solution is basically if you see all the logs in your computer only, this is only shows maybe a log or event log one computers. But the SIM, the most important thing in SIM that it will be it's allowed to collect logs from different machines and collect logs from different devices. In order to call a solution a SIM, you need to be able to talk to a firewall and get the logs. You need to be able to talk to a proxy server, okay, and get the logs. You need to be able to talk to your, for example, database and get the logs. And the SIM solution will be able to understand all these logs and normalize these logs into one certain format and show you all this format. So if you work in a solution that gets logs from different devices, different servers, different operating systems, and normalize it in a certain format, that is what you can call SIM. And it will allow you to create cases, it will allow you to create tickets, it will allow you to create correlation rules. All this, that's what we call it SIM. So if you had this, okay, and that's why we talked about SIM function. SIM function will do collection, aggregation, normalization, correlations, and then finally it will do storaging and indexing, and finally it will do reporting as well. So if you had a solution that do all this stuff, okay, this is definitely you dealt with SIM. Okay, one of the really good SIMs that exist out there, there is a Splunk SIM solution. There is Alien Vault that Dr. Asad has shown you guys. Also, we have QRadar. Okay, we have ELK. I'm gonna show you the ELK. The most also another thing that you really need from SIM is to have a dashboard. The dashboard will allow you, okay, to see what kind of network flow are happening right now.
Okay,
What kind of
I think I got what you want to explain, Mr. Shadi, and in this case, I really didn't think the Commander is a SIM solution because it just tracks the activity inside the code, and it's
okay.
not have the ability to get logs from the
Yes. So
wirefall
it's like
or
an
network.
event viewer. So it's event viewer
Yeah.
is really related to one machine specifically or one application, which is good that you have seen how it works and you started to investigate the events. This is what I used to do when I was really fascinated about events, especially security events. I will open my Windows machine and I will start to look at event by event. Okay, what is this event is saying? Oh, it's saying security logged in, security failure. Oh, I can I can troubleshoot what is happening on my machine just by looking at logs, because logs, guys, is like a gold mining, especially if you're troubleshooting an issue. Okay, so if your machine having an issue to access the network, If your machine is trying having an issue to install a certain application, if your machine is trying to reach a website and you cannot really get to this website, go check security logs and application logs and event logs in machines. It will tell you a lot about what's happening in your machine. Okay, guys. So this is SIM basically that we have covered already 2 days ago. Okay, so let's just move in a little bit. We talked about the goal of cybersecurity, and we talked about also the kill chain. And one of the kill chain stages is basically do something called pivoting. And pivoting is moving from one target to another target within your network. And usually the attacker will they will look for a very weak target first, and then they will compromise this one. Okay, and then they moving from this target to another target until they reach their objectives and execute their objective. We call this strategy island hopping, and this is where this island hopping idea came from. This came from the Second World War, when the United States was looking at the Japan islands, because Japan does have a lot of islands around Japan. So they will look for the weakest island, they will occupy it, put their bases, and then once they establish a foothold in one island, they will attack another island, they will attack another island, and so on. And the attacker will do the same thing in really compromising your network. They will not go and try to really interact with your Active Directory, because your Active Directory is away far from them. They cannot really reach your Active Directory. Your Active Directory is not easy to be exploitable from outside, but they will take it step by step. They will look for the open service online. They will start to do reconnaissance. They will just jump on one of these, exploiting one machine, and then jumping in until reach the destination. We talked about this strategy, and this is a strategy.
Hello. Hi, Mr.
Hello.
Shadi. Yes, I just woke up and I didn't attend in the first lecture. I'm sorry for late.
Okay, no worries. You can talk to Abir. Abir is here. You can just send her a message and tell her about the situation, and I'm sure that she can do something about it. Okay?
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Okay, great. So we talked about this idea. Okay, so how can we do this? So how can we do detection techniques? So we talked about, this is 2 quotes that I like, that I have brought here, guys, for you guys to read. Especially, we are talking about detection for the unknown. Some attacks, guys, are targeting 0 days vulnerabilities. Okay, so how can I really know, okay, if they are targeting 0 days of vulnerability? Because there is no events will be showing up. Okay, so there is, the FBI is saying here, and Cisco also said the similar thing. There are only 2 types of companies: those they have been hacked, okay, and those that they will be, okay. And the CEO of Cisco, they said there's 2 types of companies. There's companies know they are hacked, and the company they don't know they are being hacked. So we really need detection to understand if we are under attack or no, and how to detect this, okay? And then the idea here is you need to always assume you have been compromised and look for sign to confirm this assumption, okay? And this is a mentality of threat hunting. The mentality of threat hunting is you look for signs that you've been compromised. These signs of being compromised, we call them indication or indicator of compromise. And the indicator of compromise here, this is finding the footprint that attacker leaves behind when they breach your defenses. Okay, so this is according to what we learned yesterday about someone called Locard law. And Locard law, بيقول لك with every contact there is an evidence, or there is a trace. Okay, so you are assuming that you are being compromised. Let me look for indication of compromise. This should be your mentality detection team. How can I do this? I will go try to find any evidence, any clue, any forensics evidence that this system being compromised. Okay, and we talked about there is types of indication compromise. We call there is atomic one, that these are simple one, an IP address, a domain name that the attacker using. Okay, so this is a very simple one that is really we cannot do anything. There is a calculated one. So the attackers send me a file and I need to calculate the hash to understand what kind of file it is, okay? And later on, I can use this hash to maybe build a rule using, you know, for example, Snort or Yara. We'll look at Snort or Yara in more details today. We also we talked about the behavior one. This is what talks about the behavior one is the one that's combined between atomic and calculated compromise. So let's just go and how to look for indication of compromise, where I can get it. So the first thing is saying here, the gold, there is a gold in those log files. Which log files I should look at when I'm looking for the unknown for to do threat hunting, especially I'm looking for ABT guys, I'm looking for the 0-day vulnerabilities. It's not easy to find them easily. So he said like, okay, you can collect logs, as some of you guys said today, Faisal and Abdulaziz and Naif, we can collect logs from firewall, IDS and IBS, proxy servers. And again, I explained proxy server before, but the proxy server is basically a server here. It's gonna look at your internet connection. Sometimes they call it web filter. Sometimes they call it proxy gateway. But when you are as a machine over here, sending traffic to the outside world, your proxy server, this one, will look at the traffic. If the traffic is allowed, it will allow you to go to another website. If you have a policy here saying some traffic is not allowed, it will drop your traffic. One thing that is good about web proxies, it is when it communicates to the external world, guys, it really hides you, and because the proxy server will be between, so it will get your connection, look into your connection, and start to initiate a connection with the target or maybe the website here, guys, okay, on behalf of you. So it's somehow, it's really defending you as well from being seen from the external world. So this is a proxy server. We also look at the DNS. Why DNS is important? Because every time you are accessing the internet, or every time you're trying to reach a website in the internet, you start all this communication with a DNS request. So it's good for someone who is investigating if something suspicious on a machine or a server to look at the DNS. Why? Because you can see what IP address I'm talking to, what kind of request this machine was asking to go to the internet. So this is all it's gonna be rested in your authoritative DNS here. Okay, system log files, again, Windows, Linux, they are creating a lot of logs files when it comes to security and application and systems. So you really need to collect this as well. And then net flow data means your routers, okay, your firewalls are really creating a lot of outgoing traffic and incoming traffic. You need to look at the net flows. I was once in interviews and asked me about what would you use, okay, in order to see the network packets. So I said, okay, I should have net flow or a data flow coming from router and the switches. And his second question was, okay, but this is only giving you the metadata. I said, okay, so what is the metadata? So he told me the metadata means it will show you, okay, the source IP address, the destination IP address, okay, the port number, okay, and the destination port number. Okay, so this is, we call it the metadata, the header. I wanted to see what is inside the buckets. Okay, I wanted to see the data. And the answer to his question, he answered me later on in that day, and the answer for his question, in order to see the data inside the bucket as well, you need to have a full bucket inspection. And a full bucket inspection means you will get the whole bucket, including the data, not only the header. Once you have a full bucket capture, like with something like TCP dump, or maybe something like Wireshark, then you can tell what kind of communication happened and what is the content of this communication. Why we need to do this, guys? And I'm telling you, sometimes you have a user who went online and he does something suspicious, or he been receiving an email with a file which is suspicious. If you're looking at only the net flow, you will be able to see only the source and the destination IP address, and maybe the port number has been used. okay? But what if I wanted to see the traffic itself, the content of this file, you know, the file he downloaded? So then you need a full bucket picture, okay, or full bucket capture. Okay, do you understand what is a net flow, guys? And what is a full bucket captures? What is the difference between them? Hello?
Yes, with you, Mr. Shadi.
Okay, so there is two different types. NetFlow, it will show you only source destination, but it will not show you what is inside these packets. So important to investigate also what is inside the packets. So you really need to have a full picture by getting a full packet capture. Okay, so let's look at what we will look at today for the rest of the day. Is we have an incident here. Okay, we will have a proxy server over here, and these proxy servers are showing me are the top 10 most visited sites by a machine in my network. Okay, and one of these sites that's been reached by this machine is going to be is one of these. It's called facebook.ru. So if you guys go here and try to go to facebook.ru, okay, because this is part of your investigation. The first thing you say, okay, facebook.ru, this is interesting IP address, okay, or the URL. Okay, so if you try to reach this URL, as you can see, there is nothing. I cannot reach anything. So this is what will make you suspicious about the whole case. It's your instance. Oh, sorry, I would say it's your instinct about there is something suspicious here in this website. Why there is a facebook.ru, not .com? Okay, so the first thing you got this, guys, from the proxy servers. This is a proxy logs. It shows you a machine, and then you look at network logs. You can see this machine 10.0.2.4 is the one that was talking to facebook.ru. Okay, and then if you go to the asset management, this is another server in your network. It can tell you which IP address, okay, located to which assets. Okay, guys, you remember when we talked about identification early beginning, and we said we need to do identification for all our assets. Okay, so how can I get the IP address to a machine name? It's using maybe a DNS. You can do this using a DNS. Okay, or you can use the asset management server, okay, to go and say, you know what, this machine with this IP address, we have this user are using it. So now you can link between all the parties of this incident. You can tell, I have a website which is, I see a lot of traffic going to it. Okay, I see where is this IP address is talking to who. Okay, I can also investigate which machine, which IP address, which users are using this. So we can see this user over here is called Thomas Anderson, and he is working for corporations called metacortex.com. Okay, guys, so this is kind of the first early beginning or signs of an attack. Okay, so let's just move on a little bit. So what we can get data from? So this machine is now our source of attentions. So we look at it and from this perspective, because now I need to filter and look for more indication of compromise in this specific machine. So I said, okay, this is my machine. This is the assets. This is 10.0.2.4. Okay, there is two types of logs that I wanted from these machines. Some of them are host, like coming from the machine shell. Okay, some of them are network, and some of them according to the behavior of the user that who's sitting in this machine. So let me start to get and really look at the logs from all this stuff. And we mentioned before the host forensics or the host logs is divided into two parts. One is volatile logs. This is coming from your memory, processes, you know, service running on this machine right now, which process are mapped to which network port. So I really need to get this. And in order to get this, I will do memory dump. I'll look for any suspicious processes. I will look for any processes that's open and network connections. So this is kind of stuff that we talked about it maybe 2 days ago when we looked at when we looked at digital forensics, okay, and also there I wanted also to get and also clues for what's happening from the files in this machine. So I will take samples from these machines files. So I will look at the files. I will look at the browser history, because this guy was basically trying to reach Facebook's .ru. So this is kind of proving to me he's the one who was doing this. I'll look at the registry, which is the registry is a small database within our operating system. So it's important. I wanted to see if there is any registries has been added recently. And I'll explain why registries is important today. So we'll look at why registry is important. I will look at any document has been downloaded recently on this machine, and if I can have, especially if it's been downloaded in a temp folder, because there is so many malicious codes right now. It will be downloaded in a certain location, then it will be executed. So we'll look at also any file that has been downloaded. Okay, also from network perspective, idea, I will look for the proxy logs. I have already looked at the proxy logs, so that is what makes me suspicious in the first place. But I wanted to have these logs as well, because later on I can use it as a forensics evidence. This machine has been compromised. I wanted to look at any firewall logs, any metadata of these files. And again, metadata or PCAPs is basically a bucket captures from this machine right now and what is being downloaded on this machine. So this is why I explain what is the difference between data flow and bucket captures. So the data flow will only give you the metadata, or if you can have the whole PCAP files, which is also showing what this machine was doing exactly. So this is also, I was also to get some logs about the behavior of this person, which is Thomas Anderson, okay? So I'll get this user information maybe from a behavior analytic systems, if I have one. If I don't have one, I also can go to HR system or maybe some record, because I wanted to check what kind of background of these users, if he had any training within our company to check for phishing attacks and all this training, if he was included in this training. I wanted to get the full picture as we mentioned before. So this is what is start. And again, this will be within our Meta ports company. Okay, so you guys understand what is the case we have right now? We have an incident, and this incident was trying to access a malicious website, okay? And then we started to collect logs to prove what's going on, okay, guys? So firewall logs, it's important because it's gonna show us if there is any new session has been opened, especially we'll talk about also there's some attackers are very smart and they will not try to connect to the victim machine because they know the firewall you have, it will block their connection. So they will do something that will make the client himself go and ask for a certain website. So we look at for new session are enough, okay, to understand what session has been opened with this Facebook.ru. You look for incoming and outgoing. They call it ingress and outgress, means look at for the traffic that initiated from this machine going to this website and vice versa, what kind of reply he got from this website. This will give you more information about what's being done between these machines, okay? Denied or permitted, also it would be good to see if there's some of these connection was denied or permitted, if you can have also this as well, okay? And I'll explain why some attackers are very smart when they come to evade the firewall, and we'll talk about something called the reverse shell. I know this is a bit advanced topic, but we'll talk about it later on. Okay, also, if we have an IBS or IDS, most of our traffic is going through an IBS and IDS. So the traffic generated from your machine is gonna go to the IBS and IDS and then to the firewall and then to our routers. I wanted to have a complete picture for what network traffic has been done. Also, the good thing about IBS and IDS, they can see the traffic not only until the network layer or transport layer, it can also see the traffic up to the application layer. So you can see also the packet content that's going outside. So detecting attacks here, it's saying are nice. If you see there's an attack happening right now, someone is attacking our website, it's nice to see it, especially from IBS and IDS perspective, but really detecting compromise is cool. So this is really, that shows you IDS and IBS, it can really help you to detect a compromise. And the good thing, guys, once you detect that there's a compromise, okay, you can create your own rules, or you can create your own, we'll show you guys today, we'll create our own rules or signature and implement it in our IBS and IDS, so it can block this traffic in the future. So looking at the traffic going back and forth from IBS and creating signature also is very cool thing to do. You need actual information from your IDS, IBS systems, mean whether this connection happened, took place. So this is actual information. Customer rules are the path to salvation, mean right after you find you were being compromised or attacked, you can write your own custom rules to stop these attacks in the future. And I will show you how today to write a small rules in Snort or in Yara to really block a certain traffic from a certain website. So IBS can really be a detection techniques. And later on, once you find out about the attacks, you can write your own signature to prevent this. So it can work both sides. Again, let's look at proxy server. I explained proxy, guys, and the proxy, what makes me really suspicious about the whole activity from the beginning. We have seen that this guy, okay, top most visited site was this specific specific domain name called facebook.ru. Okay, so I know from my proxy server what kind of traffic was generated to the internet in the last maybe 10 hours, and I can see if there is something anomaly using the proxy server. So the proxy server logs are very important. So it's, as you can see here, guys, is detecting known bad sites. You can really implement in your proxy server. That's any website for example, weapons, or any website for gambling, I can block it. Any website for maybe something not appropriate also can be blocked. So it's good to detect if there's something bad. And also, guys, especially in the proxy server, some of the proxy server out there, they have feeds. So this is my proxy server. I'll give it a B. Okay, and it's connected to the vendor. Okay, so the vendor today, they did some threat intelligence and they found one IP address is related to spamming, or one IP address that's relating to maybe I would say spamming, or maybe malware spreading. So once they found out this is a confirmed information, the vendor can give you a list of all this bad IP address. So if one of your clients is trying to really access this website, it will block him right away. And this is the benefits of having threat intelligence. You can have the vendor working to get all this IP address. It will send it to you as a feed, and you get it in your proxy server, and your proxy server accordingly will take decisions without and highlighting that's one of your users that were trying to reach this bad server. So this is also can be an indication of compromise of one of your machine. And so it's good to look at your proxy and the logs coming from the proxy. Okay. Also, trace infection to source means the proxy server is getting a request from one of your clients and sending this request to the internet, so it can see the whole path between the source and the destination. So it can tell you this machine was infected, and this we were talking to this specific domain. So it can give you the whole trace or the whole thing between a source and the destination. So it's good to have the logs from proxy, detecting outliers, so also detecting abnormalities in your network. Okay, guys? Sorry about this. I'm just giving you, also we mentioned that DNS is important source in your network to see what's happening. So DNS can show you the log of queries, which machine asked for, because once you click on a link you get by email saying that, okay, go to Facebook to Russia, your DNS will work right away because you can computer is configured with a DNS, so it will go and ask the requested I wanted to go to Facebook.Russia, so the DNS will get the request, go and ask another DNSs about which IP address is located for Facebook.ru, and then it will reply to you back. So the log queries that's happening in your DNS is very valuable. That's why a lot of threat hunting, they keep looking at first at the DNS, because this is, the initial time of the compromise when you clicked something and you've been directed to a website. This is even before the attacker decide to give you a malware or to download something malicious in your computer, or even to exploit your browser. So this is early beginning of the attack, and that's why there is a lot of techniques right now to protect the DNS and look at the DNS queries. Okay, establish the DNS queries and response baseline, analyze index domain response, analyze successful DNS lookup. This is what we were talking about. Identify domain name abnormalities, or abnormalities. So basically, we'll look at anything that's in the DNS lookup that looks abnormal or looks different. So this is DNS logs as well is important. Net flow data, we explain the net flow data, who is talking to whom. This is when it's come to IP address and the destination IP address. When doing incident response, being able to narrow down the scope is the key. So you really need to understand which machine specifically we're talking to this specific domain. So this is easy by looking at the net flow and look at the data that's been originated from this IP address to the destination. And the asset management solution will tell you who was using this machine. And also there is also some stuff that exists in our Windows operating system is important. Some stuff like what service is running right now, what service was successfully started, what service has been just changed its status for this service. Okay, and if we have an e-service terminated, we'll talk about why attackers love services, okay, to be part of the service, and I'll explain why. Okay, and we will talk about also files. Some attackers likes to really to get themselves in one of these registries, because this registries basically gives them the ability to be persistent. So for example, for instance here, if I manage to put my malware here or my backdoor here, that means every time your computer will restart, okay, my malware or my backdoor will be executed, because this is under the registry. If anything is here, it will be run every time the computer is started. Also, one thing is that the attacker, okay, don't worry, I will give you, this is just the starting. We didn't start really look at the okay, so right now, this is specifically this one, guys. Okay, this one over here is basically something called the registry file, and the registry file is basically a small database for all the configuration on your Windows machine. So if I wanted a certain application to run every time my computer restart, I need to keep it here. So I will configure my registry to add this application here. So if I added the application here, every time my computer restart and my computer open up again, this specific application will run. So if the attacker wanted to be persistent, what we mean by being persistent, being even if you start your computer, he will not lose access to your computer. Even if you installed a new patch for Microsoft vulnerability, will still be able to come back, is to add his backdoor or malware in this specific area. We'll talk about also service and what the different type of service. And again, there is some security events that you can get from Microsoft security events, which is important. You need to review it. So something like a new process has been created, a new service was installed in the systems, and I will explain why the service and the processes is very important part for the attacker to attack. Okay, guys, so far so good. Okay, and then we also need to acquire a sample from what this user downloaded from this website, or what kind of interaction happened with this website. So how to really extract this? And you remember I have already told you that you need to have a full packet capture in order to get the file itself. Why? Because this file is the stuff that I will really need to investigate. So I will give you an example. So your computer accessed the website and downloaded file. I wanted to check this file. I wanted to understand if this is a malware or no. Okay. If I really relayed a NetFlow will tell me who has already contact who, but will not tell me where is this data, what kind of communication happened. So I really need to extract from network traffic, okay, a sample of what has been exchanged. So you access it, let's say your computer accessed a website, and this website downloaded a file into your computer. How can I get a sample of this file? So you really need to have tools to extract the network traffic. And that's why we need something called full packet inspection or full packet capture, okay, to extract what has been. So if you have a full packet capture, you will have the header, who's the source, who's the destination, and you will have also the data, what kind of data has been there. So I will get, especially if I do malware analysis, I wanted to see the original malware. Because later on, remember, we said in malware, we can do something called the static analysis and dynamic analysis. I can have, if I have the sample, I can run my static analysis, I can run my dynamic analysis and start to see if that's a real malware or no. And that is what a threat hunter will do. Okay, guys? You also need to investigate if we have any files on the disk, but this is not guaranteed because some new breeds of attackers, they use something called fileless malwares. So this file malware will be running in the memory, okay, and executed in the memory. So it will not really leaves any trace in the hard drive. So, and that's why in the early beginning, we mentioned that we need to have a memory dump, because the memory dump can also give me a capture of this sample. So this sample of malware, I can get it from the network traffic. What if I don't have a network traffic? Maybe I can get it from the file on the disk. What if this new, it's a new breed of malwares that exist in the memory only? So I really need to dump the memory to get this sample of this file, which will allow me later to investigate what kind of malware I'm dealing with or what kind of files I'm dealing with. Okay, I'm just giving you a full scenario. Okay, guys. So samples, we already agreed. How to extract network traffic? You can use Wireshark. Okay, you can use Network Miner. All of them will allow you to see the sample itself. Again, the sample is the malware itself. Okay, how it looks like. What kind of data exists in this malware? Because don't forget, malware is just a small application that is meant to be really bad. I will give you an example. You guys remember when you created the MS Venom, this is specific attacks for Android that you have done maybe in one of the labs? You guys remember when we created the lab to analyze a malware and we showed you
Underwood malware. Yes, we remember.
Venom? Yes, MS Venom, guys, created a file that can work in Android. That is a malware, okay? And that's why we took it later on and analyzed it by the mobile security framework. So again, I can create a specific malware that it will run in Windows. So it will be executable file. Or I can create another malware that is .dll, and I'll explain what is a DLL later on today. So I can create a malicious file that's for a specific environment. I wanted to capture this file. So you can capture this file using network flow extraction, and he gave you here a few options. You can capture it using a Wireshark. You can capture using network miner, but this is our GUI. You can capture it also for MOST and DShell, okay, for Linux operating system, but these are not GUI, so it's not easy to deal with it. Okay, guys, I will give you an example. Okay, Extracting from memory, you need to create a memory dump, and you can create the memory dump in two ways. You can, if you are close to this machine, you can go closely and have a USB, and this USB will run a command called bsexit.exe, and then you will dump all the memory. I think that you have already done this using volatility application in one of the labs, if I'm not mistaken. So basically you dump the memory and they start to look for this executable file, or you can do this remotely. So from your forensics lab, if I wanted to get a sample of what a memory on another computer looks like, so I will specify what is the IP address of this memory, what domain, I will specify my privileged user account, okay, and then I will dump the memory to a TIM file, which is called memory.dmb, and then later on, memory.dmb, I need an application like Volatile to open this dump and start to investigate this dump. Okay, guys? So this is extracting from dump. If you have the attackers already using one of the files in the system, this is very easy. You can access the file on the system and take the files as a way it is and start to really do your investigation. So basically, there is 3 ways to look at a sample of these malwares and investigate it. Okay, now we need to analyze the sample. What we mean by analyzing the sample, now I have a sample, okay, I got it whether from the network or I get it from a file or I get it from even the memory dump. I need really to start to analyze it. There is 2 ways to analyze a sample. One of them called static analysis, okay? We talked about this before, and one of them is called dynamic analysis. What is the difference between dynamic analysis and static analysis? I have an exe file, or I have a DLL file I extracted from the network, okay? And I wanted to really see what is inside this file, because now I have only file.exe. Okay, guys, I only have one file.exe. I wanted really to take this file to see what is the content of this exe, what kind of codes is written in this exe. So I really need to do something called reverse engineering, okay, reverse engineering, or to do static analysis. To basically, I told you this exe is first made of assembly language, and this assembly language has been translated to something called high-end language. I wanted to see the high-end language of this code that has been here. Once I can see that the code here, I can tell what file I have here. Why? Because you can see what the attacker was trying to do with this file. So this is the static analysis. Dynamic analysis means, guys, I will have this sample and I will have something called sandbox environment. That's what we called it, sandbox. It's an isolated environment. Means this isolated environment is isolated from my production network, from testing network, and I will put the sample here in this dynamic environment, or so there is a sandbox environment, and I will execute it. Okay. Once I execute the file, I can monitor what processes it will create. Okay, what service it will run, what network connection it will try to run, and I will have a nice report to say, okay, it created this and this and this, so I can monitor the malware in reality, if it's been executed, what it will do. Okay, so this is how to analyze a sample. Analyzing sample is done by 2 ways, okay, static ways and dynamic ways. And I mentioned to you guys, don't rely on only in one way. Why? Because the static ways, guys, it can be very naive file, but later on in another stage of the attacks, it will download something really dangerous. Okay, so that's why they said, oh, don't rely on static analysis. You really need to combine static analysis and dynamic analysis, and that's what we call the hybrid analysis. Okay, so in order to really do this, and that's why we mentioned a few days ago when we were talking about threat hunting, one of the tools that the threat hunters will do is basically malware analysis. So the threat hunter, whether your organization needs to do how to do reverse engineering, need to do how to decompile files, need to know how to really look into file binaries and file DLLs, and how also you need to have a small sandbox environment where he can execute files and see what kind of behavior these files are doing. Okay, guys, this is all, guys, things that we have already talked about before, right? I'm just telling you what's happening. I mean, I'm giving you like a quick review, but the topic we didn't start yet in the topic for today. Okay, so confirming the sample, we mentioned static analysis and dynamic analysis. Okay, and this is the first part, is the static analysis. Before we go to the static analysis, guys, I will take a short break for you guys to, you know, get some fresh air and get coffee and really focus in the next time and the next part. Okay, so it's now 10:20.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will share this inshallah once we finish. I will share with you guys the whole inshallah the whole lecture on Discord. So 10:20 to 10:35 inshallah. We'll come back till 10:35 to look at how the static analysis will relieve a lot of information about the attack. Okay, guys.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Come
Shah.
back inshallah 15 minutes. Hello, guys, can you put me in mute, please?
Yeah, we can hear you.
وتعاطفوا مع الملك اكيد تعاطفوا معاه. على منظر دخوله في القاعه صعب جدا
I
كيف
was listening to the news in the morning.
هيبه وجيت احساس بالضعف والحزن. ما بالغ ان قلت انه هذا المشهد اللي كان مصاحب موسيقى اسطوريه.
Okay, guys, let me check out who's listening.
هذه الموسيقى ما بالغ في ايش من مشهد الان.
Okay, I have no idea, but yeah. Okay, great. So basically, guys, where we are right now is we have a sample of the file that's the user was downloading from this malicious website, and in order to really check if this files is a normal files or like a malware or something, I really need to investigate this file. So there is two ways we mentioned before. There is something called static ways, and another way is called dynamic ways. And the static ways, basically, I'm looking at to reverse engineer this file and look into what this file is all about. So the first stage here, guys, in malware analysis, we do something called string analysis. And the string analysis basically is looking into this file and try to find if there is any strings. And the strings, guys, in programming language means, I don't know if you guys a lot about programming language, but strings means if I have any text in my code, okay, that I define it as a string, str, it will be showing the same thing. So what I'm doing in string analysis, I'm looking inside this exe files or these files that I got from the attacker to look for a specific string. Something like if he's using his name, if he's using a specific domain name, if he's using a specific IP address, it should be written the way it is in his programming. So I'm looking for the same string. So the strings basically is a sequence of characters. And usually we're trying to, when we in doing a programming, we give it a str as a string, and then we put it between two semicolons, and then we write our string. So we are trying reverse engineering and looking for a certain string within a program, okay? And there is an indicator associated with a suspect binary. For example, a malware creator creates a file. So what kind of files this malware is creating? What kind of malware? What kind of service is gonna run? What kind of registry it will try to attack? So this is the strings that I'm looking at. So if you guys look at this is a string tools, okay? And the string tools, it's trying to find any characters that is going through a sequence, okay? So it find something about someone called admin, Jose, and it find also the Facebook.ru that we were looking at, okay? It find also the name of a certain company called also Meta Cortex U. Okay, it find also here a file exe name. Okay, so this is the executable. It's called hack this specific company.exe, and it find also there is two specific registry here. I explained this two registry before, but again I will explain it one more time. The registry is basically a configuration database for Windows. So every Windows does have a registry, and if you configure this registry in a certain way, your Windows will behave in certain way. So for example, if I wanted certain service to start, I will go to my registry and adjust some keys, and this service will start every time your computer will start. Okay, if I wanted certain application to open to me every single time my computer start, I can go and add this application in this certain location. Okay, why the attacker will do this, guys? Okay, the attacker will try to execute this file in the run command because they wanted their backdoor to run every time your computer restart. And that's what we call sometimes in the attacking realm called persistence. Okay, persistence means I really need to have a persistence connection with a certain computer. So what I can do to have this persistence connection, I can add something to the run, and every time your computer restart, I will have this connection back. This is gonna be how can I establish a persistence in a computer. Okay, so but again, here is a good indication. When I did the string over here search, this area specifically from the search is a good indication. Okay, there's something suspicious. Someone is running a file.exe, coming from the same thing that's facebook.ru, which is, I know it's not an existing domain or anything. It looks suspicious. Okay, and these are trying to communicate with two specific area in my registry, which is, I know they are very important when it comes to adding something that runs every time. So I kind of have a hint right now what kind of malware I'm dealing with. Okay, guys. So this is the first area, early beginning. Okay. So far, so good. Looking at the string in a malware. Okay. So let's jump a little bit and look at to some more complicated analysis. The more complicated analysis that I'm looking at is something called BE analysis. And what is BE analysis? Is basically it's a portable executable analysis. So any exe file that runs in Windows, okay, they have something called here. If you guys looking at malware binary specifically, there's an often something called Windows portable executable BE format. Okay, for the reason it's good to have a tool capable of performance in-depth analysis of this format. Okay, so in-depth analysis of this format, if you guys can see here, once you have the Meta Cortex.exe, you will take it to something called BE analysis. And what the BE analysis, it will start to look inside these files when the executable will run. Okay, what exactly the executable will do in Windows environment? Is it gonna create files? Is it gonna try to talk to a register? Okay, it's gonna talk to our service. Okay, it's gonna make a connection outside. So I really wanted to understand analysis step by step what this specific files will do when it run executable. So if you guys can see here, it will run the analysis. It will not execute the file, but it will run and see the analysis in this file. So as you can see, continuing static analysis for found malware samples, important DLLs and methods suggest that registry entries will be read and created. If you guys look at here, there is an registry area will be read. That's I'm gonna go and talk a specific registry area, which is this specific area. Remember from here, there's two registry as being called here, and we talked about that registry is just part of your Windows configuration database. So there is two area will be called. So I will call them, and then I will add an entry to add a new run program every time your executable run. So this is the first area. Registry entries will be read and created. Where is this exactly area? If you look at this here, it will say there is a registry here will be read, and then there will be registry he created. I know this is not very clear, but this is what exactly I'm doing. So I'm reading the registry of Windows, and I'm creating new registry now for my program to run again. Okay. Also, files will be created on the drive. There's another files will be created on the drive. Okay, why there's a file will be created in the drive? I will explain in 1 second. Okay, and this file that will be created in the drive, it will be in a DLL format. So can you guys see this one? Will be a file created called something .dll. Okay, so the attacker right now, he wanted to establish to be a persistence. Okay, he wanted to establish to also have a file, okay, within your operating system. Okay, and this file will be located maybe in temp directory or in a specific directory that the user right now have an access to it. Okay, and I'll explain why this card. Okay, potentially the malware will run in the background and check for changes on the regular basis. Okay, so we see how the attacker will make this malware run in the background. But from the BE analysis, I can see there is 2 major steps happen here. The first step, he created some registry key, and I explained to you why attackers loves to add a registry key, because they wanted to be resistant, and he created file in the hard drive called .dll. Okay, if you guys remember from yesterday, the attack that we were talking about, the IoC basic, the IoC types, we said that IoC types is atomic IoCs, and there is something calculated IoCs. And we looked at the behavior IoC, and we mentioned that in one certain steps here, there was an atomic conclusion that the malware has already installed files, and they called this files, and they added these files specifically under Windows System 32, and he called this file something .dll. Okay, why the attacker are doing this? Why after I've been compromising a machine, why I added myself in the registry so I can get there? Okay, why I add this DLL specifically in this specific location, or maybe in a temp location? Okay, and the idea here, guys, the attacker wanted to run in 2 modes. Let me just explain this in spin. Okay, so the attacker add himself to the registry. Okay, so this is the first step. He adds something in the registry to be persistence. Persistence means even if you shut down your computer, it can still come back to your computer. So this is the registry, and the attacker now is placing file .dll, okay, in your Windows environment, okay, or even in a temp directory, because sometimes the attacker will not have an access to this Windows System 32, so he will add this DLL in a temp environment. Okay, why the attacker will add this DLL? Because the attacker wanted to achieve 2 things here, and I'll explain how we will achieve it. One of them is being able to escalate his privilege. He wanted to be admin in your machine, so he will use something called DLL hijacking. I'll explain it in 1 second, okay? And he need to run all the time in your machine, okay? So he will exploit a certain service which is using this DLL. So every time your service restart, or every time the service he can restart, the DLL will be executed, and the DLL will call the machine of the attacker. Okay, again, let's just try to explain this in a very simple way. Okay, so what is the DLL hijacking first? Why specifically he put it in this specific folder? So DLL hijacking, guys, in a very simple way. Every executable file in your environment, and service is also an executable file, by the way. Service is a small application that runs in your computer, okay? And it's an executable, it runs in the background. So for example, I wanted an Xbox to run in my machine. So I will go to one of the service called Xbox in your Windows servers or your Windows environment and run the service for the Xbox. So again, service is a program, okay? program is an exe, you can enable it and run it, and you can disable it. Okay, so the service, when it runs, when an exe runs, it goes and asks for certain functionality from DLLs. Okay, what is a DLL? A DLL is a very simple explanation for DLL. Is basically is a dynamic linking or dynamic linking library. The dynamic linking library, why we use it? Okay, I'll give you an example to just simplify what is DLL is doing in your Windows, and you will find thousands of DLLs in your Windows machine. Okay, let's say I have a calculator program. Okay, a calculator, and I have my Excel. Okay, so I have two different applications running on my machine, calculator and Excel, and both of them are doing add function or maybe multiplication. Okay, in order for the calculator to do the multiplication, they need a function called add, and they need a function called multiplication, and both of these applications, they need this. So what the operating system will do is you have two solutions. Either when you implement your calculator or Excel to add a functionality for adding, or to add the functionality for multiplication. But they said, no, you know what? You don't need to do this. We will give you a DLL in Windows, a library for adding, and all what you need to do is when your program needs the add function, you will call one of these DLL. So when you run your application, you don't have to load it with a DLL. Why Microsoft, or why even Linux and Unix? Because this is the same topics in Linux and Unix. They have something called shared library. Okay, why shared library is this way? Because they wanted really to do a better performance when it comes to not every application I will install. It needs some certain very basic function. I will have to load it with it. No, I will create a shared function. All of them, they can really look at it when they are running certain operation. So this is in a very simple way. So Microsoft come up with dynamic link library, because I have a library that do some functionality, and every time my execution, the file that I executed is running right now, and I added two numbers, it will go ask the DLL to help it to execute to do the add function or multiplication function. And that's why if you really looked into your Windows machine and start to look at every single application you run, you will find that application is running processes, okay? And under these processes, there is some DLLs are loaded in the background. Why we need it? Because we need it, okay? So how any application in Windows are go and talk to this specific DLLs? Basically, the application first, it looks for the DLLs. First of all, where is our application in Windows? Our application in Windows is in the program files. So if you go to your program files, you find all the application. Each application does have a folder itself. Okay. In order for an application to run, it needs some DLL to do some functionality. So the first time you run the application, it will look for the DLL in the same folder in the program files. If it cannot find the DLL that it requires in this specific folder, it will go and look for the DLL in the Windows directory. If it cannot find in the Windows directly, it will go find the DLL at all. You will get this nice red. I think that you guys have seen before. There is a missing DLL. Okay, you cannot run this program. Have you guys seen this message saying there is a missing DLLs before you cannot run the programs? I don't know if you guys see it.
Yeah, I have seen it.
Yes. So again, so the every executable needs this. If you guys never seen it, I can show you how it looks like quickly. So let me just open my this one. Okay. So here. Okay, guys, this is how it looks like. It looks like an error message, and it's saying that you basically there is a certain executable file here. and there is a DLL is missing, and that's why that's some application to run and to be able to function. Microsoft has already created a DLLs, which is dynamic linking libraries, and this dynamic linking has certain functions, and it's useful because you now can share one function between multiple applications instead of having this application have their own DLLs. Okay, right. We mentioned that when you run this is a normal diagram, a normal sequence. So it will look for the DLL within the directory that is located within your program files. If it cannot find in the program files, it will go look for in Windows. If it cannot look in Windows, it will look in Windows 32. Okay. So the attacker knows all this stuff. So what the attacker will do is, okay, now I will load malicious DLL into one of these directories. And that's why in the previous diagram here, the attacker was really looking to add the DLL to a specific directory, which is Windows 32. Why Windows 32 is very interesting to add it? Because he knows that a lot of service in Windows, okay, a lot of application within your environment, they will go and ask system 32 for a DLL. So if he places the DLL in this area, okay, or he managed to add his DLL here, he knows one of the service will go and really run the DLL from here. So this is what we call hijacking a DLL. So it's either he places his own DLL here, or he either look for a certain DLL within your Windows and modify it so your service will go and run this hijack DLL. So this is what we call hijacking DLL. Okay, so we understand that service are small programs. What will happen now, guys, if one of the service that runs in Windows, okay, needed an DLL, and the attacker managed to add his DLL in this directory specifically? So the service now, yes, so the service now will be compromised. What we mean by the service compromise, this is very important, okay? The service now go and ask the DLL to be executed. The execution will run the attacker code, okay? What the attacker code will look like in this case? The attacker code will looks like, okay, a backdoor. I will show you how we create this specific DLL. So this is a small diagram over here, guys, okay? So how to create a DLL, which is, I'm gonna transfer it to my victim machine. And I will explain what is the idea from the attacker, okay? So here, he will create, do you remember the MS Venom? We talked about it in a previous lab, and we keep talking about it here as well. So MS Venom, I wanted to create, this is my payload. What is the payload? Is what will be executed, okay, on the machine when this DLL executed, okay? I wanted to have a Windows 64, so I'm specifically 64. I wanted to have a shell reverse TCP. Okay, so what is this all about? Now, a shell reverse, why the attacker wanted to create? First of all, this is a tool, okay, that we mentioned that he will the P here means by payload, and the payload will create a Windows reverse shell, okay? And it's giving you here the IP address that I will reverse shell to, and the port number that I'm waiting this connection over. Okay, so what happened here? Just let me explain. So I have this machine right now, okay? This is the victim machine, okay? I have my firewall here, guys. Okay, this is my firewall, okay? And I have the attacker web server or the attacker machine that he will be able to get a connection. Okay, I mentioned that I'm gonna create this as a DLL, and this DLL will be sent eventually for who? For my victim. So it will stay in a certain directory until one of the service will call this DLL. Once the service call the DLL, okay, what will happen, guys? It will execute the DLL. What is inside the DLL? It's saying, you know what? Reverse TCP connection from this machine to the attacker machine. Okay, so this is the attacker machine. Okay, why did it reverse? Because if the attacker tried to reach directly to this specific service with the successful firewall, you see, sorry, I didn't see any connection coming from you before, and no one asked for your help, so I cannot allow this connection. So the stateful firewall, guys, will stop the normal connection coming from the attacker going to the machine. Okay, so what I want is, I wanted this machine to a reverse connection to the attacker machine. So the firewall will see a communication, okay, happening over the port 443, which is basically the encrypted port of HTTP. So the firewall does not understand the encryption, so he will not really complain, and this is going to happen, and then it will reach the machine. That's why we call it reverse TCP. Reverse TCP because the attacker is not initiating the communication back to the victim machine. No, in this case, I'm instructing the machine. Once the DLL is executed using one of these services in Windows,
It's like triggering, right?
I'll explain what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to deceive or to really fool my firewall, because the firewall is meant to, this is the internet, this is a bad area. If you're having a traffic coming here from outside to your network, we mentioned there is one of the firewalls called a stateful or stateful firewall. The stateful firewall would check the rules, would check which rules are applied right now. Can I allow this IP address to get to my network? There is nothing here stating this. I'm sorry, I cannot allow him to come from the internet to talk to someone internally. Okay, so the firewall would drop this connection. I wanted the firewall to allow this connection. I wanted the firewall to allow a communication. So I will let the machine to do initial communication. Okay, because the initial communication will come from a machine to my IP address, which is .20. This is .20. Once the initial communication happens, the attacker can reply back with another packet, and then the firewall will not complain. Why? Because the firewall will see the initial communication happening from the internally. This is some one of my users are really asking for a proper service from Facebook.ru, and now the Facebook.ru is responding back. So I will allow this communication, and that's why they use the reverse TCP here. Okay, a reverse TCP.
The request.
I'm sorry, your voice is. I'm sorry. Can you come again? Can you say again?
I'm saying it didn't drop it because it has been requested.
Yeah, exactly. It will not drop it because it has been requested from someone internal. Okay, let's also look at this. It's over 443. So the firewall will have no clue, okay, what is happening. It's saying an HTTPS traffic going, so it will not really complain. Now I fooled this firewall completely. It will not complain. Okay, and this MS Venom, it will create for me the hijack DLL. So now all what I need to do is to move this hijack, the DLL, okay, to this machine, and let one of the service in this machine to run using one of these DLL. Okay, why I want this? Why I want service to run using this DLL? If you guys go to your Windows machine right now and look at what kind of users are able to run these service, you can really realize that most of these service guys, okay, are running with the system, okay, account. What is a system account? The system account is the highest permission, within your entire Windows area. So, for example, I'll give you an example. For our user, they don't have permission. Okay, admin user, they have permission to do certain stuff. There is something called system user. The system user are the one who's responsible for doing everything related to the kernel and related to the entire operating system. So this is the highest permissions when it comes to authorization within a system. Okay, so let's look at this. Your service now will start, or the computer will start. One of these services are running under system permission, okay? But this specific service, in order to run, it requires a DLL. So it will go and load a DLL. The DLL is made by whom? By the attacker, okay? And it's asking what? It's asking when it runs, go and connect back to the attacker machine. Give him the CMD, give him the command line. Why I know that it's a command line? Because it's here saying once you communicated to the attacker, give him a shell. A shell basically is the command line, the DOS, the CMD. Okay, so when your DLL now is executed with which permission? Is not the user permission, it's the service permission. So now the DLL, when it's being executed, it will be executed with a sys permission. Then the C shell that will be went back to you is going to be running with admin permission. And that's what we call it the escalation of privilege. So now, initially, your DLL cannot do anything. But when the service calls this DLL, okay, it will run with the permission of the service. What permission most of our service are using right now is a system permission. Now the attacker will get the CMD with the sys permission. Now he can do whatever he wants. Khalas, he owns the machine right now. And don't forget, he will also load himself or add a registry key for this DLL and for this execution to run every time the computer restarts, okay? Now he owns the computers. And that's why, guys, if you guys allow me to jump one again, did you guys understand what's happening here? This escalation permission? Or this was not clear? Hello? Okay, well, Asail is saying clear. How about the rest?
Yes, it is very clear,
Mr.
Mr. Shadi.
Okay, and that's why they called it this escalation of privilege, because I managed to trick one of the service to go and ask for a certain DLL, which is basically, I created this DLL. I made it specifically to go and give me a CMD, a reverse shell. So I fooled my firewall and I fooled the Windows itself. Now the Windows is giving me a command line with NT permission as a system. And that's why when this command is gonna run, guys, the attacker are waiting this command to run. How he will wait the connection to come? He will. I don't know if you guys have seen Netcat in one of our labs, but if you don't, you will see it definitely in the ethical hacking cats. And Netcat is basically a small program that runs in your computer, and it will allow you to communicate to the external world or to receive a communication with the external world. So think about it like if in order to two computers, okay, and this is the idea of how chatting programs are used. Chatting programs, in order to send messages between computers, I will use the netcat.exe here in one computer, and netcat in this specific computers, okay, and this will open a pipes, and this pipes I can send a message from this computer, and this computer will send me a message back. So netcat is a small program that will allow me for communication over networks. Okay, this is in a simple way. But طبعا the attacker, they are using it for so many things rather than this. And it's, by the way, it's a part of your Kali Linux. There is a small program you can say NC. It will load the netcat in the memory of your Kali Linux. Okay, so what the attacker will need now, a connection back from the machine, but he needs also to know if when this connection is coming. So the attacker will say, okay, you know what? I will run the netcat, okay, and you guys can know that sudo is basically how to run netcat in the admin permission. So he's not even using his admin. So he's using sudo netcat, and then he wanted to listen, okay, and see the output, okay, and do also network lookup also when this net connection comes over a port 443. So the attacker are turning his machine to a listener, waiting for the Windows machine he compromised to communicate back to him. Once the communication happen, okay, I am waiting for it. And once it's where it's going to happen, it's going to happen in over port 443. So I'm listening over a port 443 for any communication coming. Once I got this communication here, what you see guys here, okay, I got this communication. I'm connecting back to the guy, to the guy IP address, okay, and then you can see that is you get C Windows System 32 because this is where the service and DLL is. And when you write who am I, okay, who am I is a command that you use in Windows to understand what which user are using the command line or the basically the basic stuff. So when you write who am I, if you exploited a machine only, you will get the name of the user. Okay. Now I'm not exploiting the machine. I have exploited one of the service that runs in the machine. And that's why it will tell me that the authority now is the system. And I told you, the system is the highest permission in Windows. You have users, you have admin, and you have system. If you are system, you can start, you can disable the firewall, okay, of a machine, okay. You can start service, you can start processes. You basically the highest thing, you can dump the hashes of a certain Windows environment to your SAM, the SAM hashes, basically the SAM databases. You can do everything in this Windows. So then now this is the ultimate thing. So we've seen in this attack, guys, or we've seen from malware analysis that the attacker first of all established persistence. Why he established persistence? Because he is worried that he will be kicked out if the computer start, or he or she will lose the connection. So this is the first area. And he also did some attack called privilege escalation. How he did it using something technique called DLL injection. So he injected a bad code inside one of these DLL and let one of the service in Windows or one of the application in Windows to run this, because you know what? What if I cannot really have a service going to look at my DLL? At least I will go and find one of the application that is really exist in Windows that really require a DLL, and I will place my DLL within the directory. So if I will give you an example, let's say I have an application like Adobe PDF, okay, and the Adobe PDF requires some DLLs, okay. Adobe PDF, in order to run, okay, and most of the time Adobe PDF runs in the admin rights, because this is where you set up it in the first place. It will go and ask for a DLL. So first it will check the main directory. So which main directory, where is your Adobe is installed? It will check for a DLL, and then it will check in the Windows directory. So I can place the DLL here in a temp directory, and your Adobe PDF will run. So you will have one of your processes, and that's why I was telling you, if you have one of these processes running and started all of a sudden, okay, you need to really look inside the processes. What else is running within these processes? Okay, and I'm telling you, if you investigate really the processes, you can see one of these are loaded the DLL that comes from the attacker. And then if you map these processes to network connections, you can see there is a network connection created by one of these processes to an external world. So this will give you some idea what's happening in your machine. So this is basically what we were trying to cover in the last few days, but now in a more deep details, how to investigate a case. So once the attacker is here, they already establish resistance. They already establish basically resistance and escalation of privilege. Okay, let's go ahead and just jump a little bit here to explain. This is all static analysis, guys, by the way. Okay. In dynamic analysis, we take the executable file, whether we extract it from network communication or whether we extract it from a file. We took this DLL into one of one of the sandboxes, or whether we dumped the memory and seen what service, what processes running in the memory, and started to investigate these processes and take a sample of this malware. Now we'll take this sample and try to execute it in isolated environment. So it's most important to isolate it. There is too many isolated environments there. You can download it. It's basically a VMware machine, one called Coco VMware machine, and one is from FireEye, which is another company, also malware. There is another also sandbox from Malware Bytes, which is also very famous website for also malware analysis. So they have their own sandbox also environment. So you can download it. Okay, what you really need to do is to run this exe or to run the file being downloaded by the attacker on the machine. And you start to monitor what services are running, what processes are running, what communication, because remember, when the attacker execute the DLL, there's a communication, reverse in communication will happen to what? To the attacker website. So you can see there is a communication happening right now by NetState, okay, going to certain IP address, which is owned by the attacker or owned by the attacker machine. So you really, when you execute, you can see a lot. So it's saying here, guys, you need to really use Coco Sandbox. Why? Because you really need to run this file in so the services in isolated environment. Use DLL injection techniques to intercept and log specific IP calls or AB calls. Okay, use TCP dump to capture network traffic in order to have an idea what kind of DLLs okay, and here is saying use Microsoft Rockmon. Rockmon is process monitor tools. It used to be part of a company called Sys Internals, but the Sys Internals then Microsoft bought it, I think 10 years ago or maybe 9 years ago. And the process in Rockmon, guys, it's a small, very application small. It looks like your task manager. Okay, there is something called processes in your task manager or advanced details. You can find with a Rockmon every single processes running in computer, every single service running in computer, and what kind of threats under this specific process or under this specific service. So it can give you an idea what's happening in your computer. So use Rockmon inside the environment, inside this instrument environment means controlled environment. Okay. Also use TCP dump to capture the network traffic. It will show you there's a communication happening to the external world. Also, dot can be used to analyze and visualize the execution process. So we mentioned that execution process. I wanted to really see what happened, which one process will call which process will try to talk to my registry and add files to my registries. So this is all will give me an idea what the attacker was really meant by this malware. Okay, and this is what takes me to what we have already talked about few days before, which is the TTP. Okay, tactics, techniques, and procedures that the attackers are doing. Okay, but by just doing the malware analysis, guys, I can understand his tactics is okay. First of all, how did this malware end up on the machine? Okay, so you can really retrieve the logs and see, okay, this guy got an email, and this email was saying, you know, visit this URL. So we know this started with all visiting a URL. Okay, this is Russian Facebook.Russia. Okay, so here this is the tactics. It's phishing. Okay, what techniques the attacker he used to compromise this machine? Okay, the technique is sending him malicious file, malicious malware, and this malware was the first part, and then the other part was downloading a malicious DLL to the victim machine. The DLL used for hijacking one of the service or one of the processes, and then he got a full control. What procedures he done right after this? He done this and this and that. So this is how to link tactics, techniques, procedures, okay, with basically with what was an real attack looks like. So by studying the malware, you can come up with a tactic techniques. If you can really point this to a specific adversary, you will then now have the full picture. You know who was behind this attack, what their tactics, techniques, and that's why there is, again, guys, it's always saying that the attacker can easily change his IP address. He can easily change his domain name. He can easily change the malware to exploit machine, the malware itself, like the file itself he sent. But it's not easy for him to change his techniques and procedures because he's really good in this. He has the tools for this, and that's why we explained the pyramids of pain before. Okay, this is just to link all these topics together with each other. Okay, guys, identify IoCs. You look at any pattern, identifiable pattern in the sample. What kind of pattern he's talking about here? Okay, is basically is what we talked about in early, is a string. This is what we call it as a pattern. So we identify any pattern. I found this Facebook at Russia. Okay, it's going to go and check this. I find also 2 registries keys, and one of them is famous for the attacker. So this is any pattern. This is the IoC that I have seen. To look at any created files or any modified registry key. This can also be done here, guys, in the static BE analysis. And the BE analysis is it's a static analysis for what the execution will do. So we can see this one registry has been called here, okay, and they modified the registry, and one file has been created. Okay, so this is also an indication of compromise. You also look at here, guys, created network traffic. It will also definitely give you an idea what kind of application is happening when you run this executable. And then memory patterns is basically what process is running right now, what kind of memory. Do you have any specific threads or any specific communication happening over this process or over this service? So this is also an indication of compromise. I wanted to talk about process injections, but the process injections is also part of the of DLL execution. So we'll talk about it later on. I just wanted to show you. Okay, now I am 100%. This was an attack because I seen all the details that shows this was a malware. Okay, how can I defend my system better? Because right now I know this is an attack. As a threat hunter or even as a SOC engineer who is really qualified to really dig into this topic. Okay, so now I need to call the incident response. So what the incident response will do here is we say, okay, you are sure right now this is kind of attack, okay, and this attack, when it runs this executable, it will go run, talk to the attacker machine, which is called it sometimes the command and control machine. It later on can really start to send certain command, because the attacker, once he has your own CMD or your reverse shell CMD, he can run commands now. He can disable your firewall. He can download more files into your system. Okay, he can do whatever he wants. He can actually download more tools that it will allow him to hash dump your SAM database and do hash dump. So he can do whatever he wants. So now I wanted really to stop these attacks to happen in the future, or maybe to block this malware to talk to the command and control centers. Okay, so if you guys can see, this is a small snort rules. And again, what is a snort? Snort is an open source IDS or IBS. It can be used for both. It can give you an alert. It also can drop the connection, so it can work both. And it allows you to customize rules. And this is, if you guys remember, that's one of very major thing that we really need IDS and IBS. We mentioned here in the early beginning that IDS and IBS will allow you to customize rules to defend, and this is the bus for salvation, that's the bus for solving issues. Okay, because maybe the vendor doesn't know how to solve this issue yet. It doesn't really recognize this kind of malware because it's new. Okay, so you need to create your own signature and you place it in your IDS and IBS, so it can drop this traffic or can alert you if something happened within your network. So this is how to create basically easy snort rules. You can see here, okay, you need to alert me, okay, if we have TCP connection, okay, because you remember HTTPS is happening over TCP, not UDP, okay, and this is if there is a home net. Home net means a network connection coming from my home. So can you later on define your home as maybe 10 dot something dot something, because this is where we seen in the early beginning that's the request coming from a network called 10. This is where Thomas was using his computer, okay, to extend a network. That's any external network. I will specify any external. So why I'm specifying any external network? Because maybe the attacker will change his IP later on, or change the domain name that he used. So I'm just blocking any traffic to the external, and as you can see over the port 443. Okay, so okay, now I'm telling if there is a communication happening over TCP port 443 from my network to the external, I give me alert. Okay, but I really need to specify something that will make this communication unique. Okay, so he's saying here, okay guys, he's saying here the content is basically this one, okay, or the content this one, or the content this one, okay, and then the message, okay, you will call it the silent banker, banker C2 CT traffic. Okay, so here is giving a description for the message, but where is this content came from? Okay, why he write this content this way? Okay, from where this content came from? And again, you remember guys, when we did the static analysis, it allow us to see certain string in this specific malware. Guys, remember if we go back to here, okay, so the string part over here, okay, you see it now like a string, okay, but in the rules, okay, I cannot write it as the same way here. So I'm not gonna say, okay, you know what, this is basically a string which is called Facebook.ru. This is the command and control. I will do it. I will turn it to binary. So I will change this high English format from our English to ASCII, or the binary code, and then I will add this. So if my IDS will do is gonna look for any data, because end of the day, you need to remember that the IDS and IDS guys, when you have it in your network here, and you have two communication here, the attacker machine, okay, and here is your machine, okay. So your machine will start to send data to firewall and IPS, and this data was supposed to go to the attacker. Okay, when the data leaves your computers, okay, guys, it doesn't go in the English format. It goes in 1 and 0s, okay, or it goes in a hexadecimal format. So I really need, when I write the rules here, okay, it should be written in binary or hexadecimal, because these guys are seeing 1 and 0s are coming. Okay, so 1 and 0s are coming means in hexa, this is specific character. So I cannot say to my my IDS IPS, please block Facebook.ru. It doesn't gonna get this at all. So what I will do, I will say, if you see this pattern of 1 and 0, okay, which is representing in reality Facebook.ru, block it, okay, or at least send me an alert in this case, okay. So what happened is, when these kind of 1 and 0 come to and hit the the IPS and IDS, or the snort, it will trigger the it will, as I don't remember if you guys remember 2 days ago we were talking about how the IDS and IPS really the filter the traffic. They have something called rule set, and the rule set is gonna check a certain rules within the memory, yeah, right? And it will try to match this traffic that you send it with a rule set in something in an area called preprocessor. And if one of these bits are matching the rule sets, it will drop the traffic, and then it will send maybe the administrator a message saying, I have noticed, I alerted this specific message. I'm sure that you have already seen the snort in the lab, one of the labs, and I'm not sure if you have created if you have created certain rules in Snort, but this is how the rules in Snort is. You either to get the Snort from the community of Snort, so there's so many rules already created, or you create your your custom rule. And when you add this rule to the rules, once it sees a certain pattern of traffic, it will create it to the rules, and then it will alert you or will give you. But again, what I'm writing instead of setting facebook.ru, it's not gonna work. Okay, so I'm writing the pattern itself. So here, guys, this is the pattern. Okay, and another thing, this content, okay, or this content, or this content, okay, it means it's multiple. C2 is command and control. C2 is the attacker machine, is where the attacker will start to control your exactly your machine, because now you are sending to the attacker exactly command and control. So instead of writing two C's, they said C2. Okay. So instead of the attacker now will have a control over your machine, and he can run commands. So that's why they said it a command and control. Okay, guys. So you can see there's multiple content, means from my analysis to this specific malware, I have found so many strings. So I can specify, if you find this string, or you find this string, or you find this string, please alert me, or please block this traffic. So this is how we write rules in Snort. There is also there is certain format called Yara, and if you guys maybe we mentioned Yara before, but Yara or YARA is basically is a source tool created by Vector. Okay, it's an open source tool, and it can identify and classify of malware samples. Okay, and you can create your own description of for families, and you can share this information, or you can create your own basically rules. So in this case, we call there is a new rule I'm gonna create. So we finished Snort, guys. Everyone understand what is Snort is all about now, and how can we use Snort for detection and then later on for prevention?
Yes, Mr. Khalid.
Okay, so once we have this Snort, this is not the only IDS and IPS that allow you to do this. We have also some other tools like Yara. Okay, it's an open community. It allows you to write your own notification, and you can use it as a shared way of intelligence, or maybe later on you can use it for even creating your own custom rules. So if you can, guys, see here the rule called silent banker or bankers metadata. He's saying this is just an example. For example, I would say this is a malware. Okay, the threat level is 3. Okay, and where I found it, it's in the wild. Yeah, and I got the sample from maybe a machine, or maybe in the honeypot. Okay, and then I will add the strings. Remember, where did I get the strings? From my early static analysis, when I checked the static analysis in the first beginning. Okay, how do you add the strings? Again, I will add it in the binary format or in the hexadecimal format. So I will add here the first string. Okay, if I add the second string, I add this third string. Okay, once I add this all of them, I can add a condition. I said only alert me or block this traffic if A and B and C happen. What we mean by this, يعني you should find all of these in the same sample to really tell if that's the real malware. Why? Because sometimes if only one condition happens, that means maybe the another certain traffic that looks exactly like this traffic, especially when this is maybe something. يعني, let's just go to give you an example here. Okay, there is here it's something called metacortex.ru. Okay, metacortex.ru is the domain itself. Okay, so if I said only B condition, okay, if B or A or C happening, that means if I create rule for or not and, then mean anything from metacortex will be blocked. but I don't really want this. I wanted really to combine all these three conditions. Something created in Meta Cortex.ru, going to Facebook.ru, and including a registry key, which is C Windows System32 run. Okay, guys? So that is what Yara is all about here, is also a way to create rules, and then these rules can then later on be spreaded to another devices. So this is what we call the threat intelligence, or can we use it to implement custom rules? Okay, so the metadata section is optional. It's giving you this area, this over here, if you guys can see, this area which is called meta. Meta usually the description, the information about information. So we talked about the metadata in the bucket is the sender and the receiver. So this area is option. This is the rule description. This is sharing restriction. This is thread level. And then we can add also the author who found this malware and done the analysis or wrote this rule. Okay. And then you have this string section, and the string again, this are the bits that exist in this malware, or a string of bits that exist in malware, what will make it distinguish, and I can tell this is a malware, and this is how you create a signature later on for antivirus for a certain malware. So the string section, but almost optional, but almost always used, is the text, hexa, or a regular expression. So you can add text if you want. You add hexa, as you can see here, or a regular expression. Condition section is required, is determine the condition for a detecting file. What is the condition? Is the file need to have this hexa, and this hexa. And that's why we added and here, guys. If we added or, I'm saying it's a completely different meaning. Okay, so this is about the Yara. Okay, how we searching network traffic, as I mentioned, in firewall, IDS, IPS, proxy, DNS. Okay, and this is, guys, if you guys allow me, I will just finish by this today. Okay, so how to really link this to a specific attacks, and this is where the metrics from the TTP or from the MITRE website looks. So, for example, here you can really tell. First of all, in this specific page, is talking about Stuxnet. Stuxnet was one of the most, I would say, one of the most advanced malware that's being created on all times. Let's just agree about this, okay? And if you guys have a doubt about this, I wanted you guys to go online and read, like what I told you about BitRobber Triton attacks. Go and read about Stuxnet. Read about what this really malware was doing. It's crazy. Okay, so and again, it took, I think, years and years to develop this thing. It's not gonna be. It's not. I'm not talking about a malware. I'm talking about something was very close to really destroy a nuclear facility. Okay, it's called Stuxnet. This is the name here. Stux. Sometimes they say Stuxnet or Stuxnet. So this is the name here. Okay, so go read it. There is there's a YouTube video called 0 Days. It explains how this thing is being discovered and what is really intent of this malware. But the malware in very simple way. It was meant initially to destroy the whole nuclear facility, but instead of destroying the whole facility, it took this facility completely out of service. Okay, but if you had this malware managed to explode this facility, there was so many people will die, and there's so many in this area, it will not be even used for so many years. But that's why I'm telling you that malwares right now, especially, I'm telling you, this is from my perspective, from my opinion, the real start of cybersecurity in the Middle East. And before this time, there was no cybersecurity. After Stuxnet has been already shown in the wild, okay, and people started to understand what malware can do, then I found a lot of companies in the Middle East back in 2010, 2011. Okay, they started to look into security. They said, okay, now we have really bad attacks can happen because of these viruses and these compromises. So this is where I really started my career in really cybersecurity. Before this, I was working as a network engineer. So this is back in, to be exact, 2011. Okay, it's showing here, guys, how the malware managed to start. Okay, from the early beginning, okay, all the way to the end here. It was meant to damage the property of the nuclear facility. So it's saying, first of all, if you look at the initial access, how the malware managed to get to this facility, even this facility was a completely isolated facility from the internet. It's saying it happened because there was a replication through removable media. Yani someone took virus, okay, and inserted. So the attack framework used by the analyst to find the link between threats. No, it's okay. I'll tell you exactly what's happening here. They wanted to show you in this diagram how the attack, how the malware will start, and how it managed to jump between different area here, so you can really tell later on, okay, what is the TTV of an attackers, and what is the techniques they use to really damage the facility. Okay, so it's give you like a map, okay, how the attacks took place from one stage to one stage until it reached to the final stage. So this is what MITRE ATT&CK is telling you. Again, why it is important to understand the MITRE attacks, okay? Okay, guys, why? Because I wanted really to break the chain, or to really stop these attacks to happening in my network. So it's giving you all the adversary techniques and procedures, okay, and it putting in your front of your face. So now you as an engineer, you can start to build your defenses accordingly. So now I understand this attacks started with removable media. So even if I'm not connected to the internet, the removable media can really pose a danger to my environment. Okay, so now as a engineer, a security engineer, I can implement something to stop the removable media. I can do physical controls, something to block the physical media. I can do technical controls. I can also do detection controls. If one of machines has already managed to bypass all my preventive, he managed to get the physical media also in. So the techniques and tactics, and this is what also from someone who work in threat hunting, they said, okay, we look at all these techniques, we look at these old tactics, and we started to create rules. If this rules fired on our environment, that it means that we catch an adversary within our environment trying to achieve one of these techniques. So you can use it as an adversary. So basically, you can use it as a defender to understand, okay, the attacker now in this stage of network sniffing, he is sniffing my network. How can I prevent of network sniffing? Okay, or at least if I cannot stop the network sniffing within my network, how to detect there is a network sniffing. So it give you, I would say, how the attacker, what kind of attacker mentality, okay, who is the attacker that exists in the wild, okay, and how can we really detect their action within our organization. So this is how to link the MITRE ATT&CK with IoCs. So just let me guys to explain very quickly the StackNet, and then we can take a break. So the StackNet here has started, as I mentioned, in an initial access with removable media. And in this removable media, there was an execution, an auto-run execution. Once you just plug this USB, it will run, okay? And here the delivery, how it's being delivered, okay? And as long as you are talking about removable media, we talk about a man in the middle. So they managed to really have someone within this facility, okay, you name it, maybe someone is cleaner, or maybe someone was maybe a scientist who came to check this facility. So they managed to tell him, okay, all you need to do just put this USB there, okay, and there is so many famous, I would say, attacks that happened in Egypt specifically back in 80s or in 70s, that the Russian scientists, they were developing the rocket program in Egypt. They were spying for Israel as well. So they will tell the Israel where Egypt exactly when it comes to the program. So you can have a cleaner, a scientist, or maybe someone is Iranian himself, and they managed to manipulate him to put this USB. So the way of delivery is basically to put the USB into the network, and then the USB, guys, does have a very complicated malware that is only will be activated. Look at this, and this is very special about this malware. This malware will only be activated if he find a certain type of reactors. So there, in nuclear facility, there is a specific reactors called Siemens. This is a company called Siemens, okay, and they have different type of reactors. There is specifically looking for Siemens S7. Why is specifically looking for Siemens 7? Because this facility was running with Siemens S7. So if you took the same malware and put it in any other nuclear facility, it will not work. Why? Because it doesn't have Siemens S7. Only the Iranian at that time, they used the technology of Siemens S7. And that's why after these attacks, and if you read the news, you find that the Iranian themselves, they started to create the center reactors themselves. So they don't trust I would say, the West anymore to import this technology, because once you don't have the technology, okay, anyone can attack you. So this is another crazy thing that I found very interesting. But anyway, this attack will only look at certain reactor, which is Siemens S7. One, how he knows that Siemens S7 is there? By sniffing the network traffic. So the network traffic can tell if you're using this specific Siemens S7 within your organization or no. Okay. Once he found the S7, it will start to look at commonly used port. Okay, and it will do two things. Okay, first of all, if you guys allow me, I just need a pen here to explain. Okay, so in SCADA system, we mentioned that we have something called HMI that will allow you to monitor everything's happening in your environment, and you will have something called BLCs. Okay, BLCs is the brain that control all the environment. Okay, so he will get in between, okay, or he will compromise the HMI machine, okay, because the HMI machine is end of day is a Windows machine. So he compromised the HMI machine, and he done two things at the same time. Manipulating the view. So if you have a user here, which is a scientist or maybe an operator or technician, is looking at how the facility is doing, okay, it will show him that everything is under control. Okay, this is in a very simple way, okay, and in the same times, it will manipulate the BLC. It keeps sending to the BLC, increase the reactor speed, okay, increase the reactor speed, increase the reactor speed, okay. Increasing the reactor speed is raising the temperature level to uncontrolled way. Okay, so what happens is if you keep increasing the temperature, it will reach to a point that explosion will happen. Okay, and in the same time, this guy is sitting here in his room looking at the control panel here, or maybe the screen he's looking at, it shows everything is okay. So he's not really suspecting this is anything. Only thing that's really prohibited this reactor to explode, we have a safety system. I remember that I explained the safety system before to you guys in the SCADA, and we said this is the last countermeasure to stopping. We're talking about the tank, and we said if the tank flood, you really need to have an external control, a safety control that disconnect these pumps and disconnect these valves. So the safety controls felt there is something really going maliciously here. Okay, they couldn't really talk to the attacker, talk to the admin here, because this system is completely isolated. So the system took the action of really turning off the whole reactor down, okay, without even the admin feels anything that's happening. Right after the admins find the whole facility is shut down, and he went down to this reactor, he found that the reactor temperature reached to the maximum, and it was really going to explode. They started to find this suspicious. How did I find out? How did they didn't find out about the temperature increase? And what makes the reactor here, or the saying the heart of the reactor, was going in a very different speed? Okay, once they started to really ask this question, they started the investigation. And the investigation led, was a malware infected this machine and was manipulating the view of the admin and doing this. This is, guys, in a very simple ways. I'm just explaining this in a very simple ways, but it was really more, I have read it once in 4 pages, how this happened. But I'm just explaining to you because I know that you didn't really understand the SCADA system really in deep details. But I'm just explaining in a very simple. But again, it can allow us to really understand what is the initial way of the attackers getting to our network, what can the attacker do, and then we implement or defenses accordingly. This is the whole idea behind the story here, guys, today. Okay. Okay, I think this is enough for today. Unfortunately, Dr. Asad he doesn't feel well. So afternoon will be with Dr. Abir will be here. Afternoon she will be inshallah explaining, because part of the lecture today, guys, we didn't really cover, but the part of the lecture today, let me show you guys. Okay, part of the lecture today was about policies and procedures and framework. Okay, we didn't have time to really look at procedures and framework today. We already were been explaining NIST a lot, and what is the NIST framework is all about. So I will let Abir today afternoon to look at how to implement policies and control whether the network. So afternoon session will be with Abir, inshallah, starting inshallah 1:15. Okay, thank you guys very much for having me today, and I hope inshallah this is very informative. I'll try to inshallah to get this inshallah to PDF and to save it on the Slack channel, guys. Okay, so I'll see you inshallah. Okay, Sail. Okay. Okay, it was nice seeing you guys, and enjoy your break. See you afternoon.